Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast, everybody. I am not Chad Himes. I am not Ben Kinney. I'm Bob Stewart, and I kicked the rest of those guys out of here. They're not allowed in the room. I left Dave. I let Dave stay because I love Dave. I don't even like Chad and Ben. But I brought in my new buddy, Jimmy Mackin. And Jimmy, we were joking before because I told Jimmy, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. And Jimmy's retort was, oh yeah, I'm familiar with the lazy man style of podcasting. And then Dave decided to tell me that I probably didn't do my research, but I know who Jimmy is. Jimmy, the reason we do this is not because we're lazy. It's because we want you to tell our audience what you think is important about you. We know all about you, by the way, but we don't know what you think is important about you, you know?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me on, Bob, and I'm excited about today's conversation. Hopefully we can add some value for your audience today. So my name is Jimmy Mackin. I'm the CEO of Curaytor. Curaytor is a digital marketing company. You know, we focus on helping people get their marketing done right. And for us, what that means is high quality marketing that adds value, that solves people's problems in such a way that helps agents stand out. I think if you look at the landscape right now, what you tend to see is a lot of marketing where agents are simply just copying what other people are doing. And in our industry, Bob, right, there's 1.5 million realtors out there. When you think about that for a second, how difficult it is as an agent to sort of separate yourself from the competition, it requires a different strategy, and that's what we focus on at Curaytor. So, I'm excited to be here today. Hopefully, we can add some value for your audience.
Awesome. So, a lot of our audience, I think just as a natural kind of extension of who Ben is, right, is in the real estate industry. We do have some people that listen to this that are not in the real estate industry. So, I would guess most of our audience who's familiar with real estate is familiar with you guys. You have I just think a really great reputation. Like you guys do really top-notch marketing. You help agents pull off top-notch marketing. But let's just talk about you as the CEO though, Jimmy, of your business. Cause I think a lot of people that listen are either they run their own business, they're an entrepreneur, they have a small business. You made a comment to me. We've been spending the last couple of hours together. We had lunch and we made a couple of drives in the car. I don't know Bellingham. I drove you all over the wrong ways. And
worst Uber driver in history.
Yeah, the worst Uber driver. You gave me a $4 coffee for the Uber ride. I think we're square because that was a bad Uber drive. 12 months. You made a comment that you said, like, as a business owner, one of the worst things that could happen to you is you could wake up 12 months from now and be in the exact same position that you were in 12 months ago. Like, Why is that bad? Like you might have a business that's doing pretty good today and you're making some good money and you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Like why is that, waking up in 12 months in the same place you are today, why does that like keep you awake at night? Why do you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny. I saw a tweet not too long ago, Bob, where the person says, in the startup world, there is no neutral. You are either going forward or you're going backward. And I think in the case for when you're running a business, you have to, if you're CEO, if you're the team lead, if you're in charge of the organization, you have got to be the most ambitious person in the room. If you're not, then how can you expect people to sort of rally around the mission, rally around the vision? So when I think about the future, I always think about this idea, and I tell my team this as well. You have to have this sort of this unbelievable passion for and willingness to sort of accept change in order to grow. And I think when you think about the future for most real estate agents, it's already happening to us. Meaning that if you stay still, if you don't adjust, if you don't actually try to plan for the future, then the people around you are going to, and they're going to just eat your lunch. And we've all seen this in business before. Just because you have that first mover's advantage, it doesn't mean you can sustain that position. So I think for everyone who's listening today, I think one of the most important concepts about being an entrepreneur, being a CEO, being a team leader is the idea of the innovator's dilemma. And if I've got this right, I believe it was Clayton Christensen that wrote this book, but he talks about this idea. It might have been Jeffrey Moore. He talks about this idea that in order for you to grow, you have to sort of destroy the thing that you once were. You have to replace what got you here to get to wherever it is you want to go. And I think the scariest and maybe the most damaging and perhaps the signal that you're probably not in the right seat, signal that you can have in your business is if you are complacent, if you're okay with how things are going. And so I think about as a curator, we're just trying to say, how can we be better? How can we add more value? How can we be more creative? What if we could do this thing? What would happen? But there's one other thing that's really important. And this is something that really smart entrepreneurs do that very few people take advantage of, which is you have to look at the landscape around you and say, what is true about today that wasn't true 2 years ago or 3 years ago? And then how can I take advantage of that? And I'll give you a really specific example of this. Look at the emergence of video. In the past, let's say shooting a video, distributing the video, advertising the video was an incredibly difficult thing for people to do. So therefore, the adoption was very low. And so a few people essentially got the vast majority of the value. But now that video is ubiquitous, now that has changed the game. Now you have to be in a position, because the environment has changed, where you should be embracing this medium, because you can grab a iPhone, you can grab a little Logitech Brio, you can get a Canon DSLR, right? You can do whatever quality you want, but then you can advertise that video on YouTube. You could advertise that video on Hulu. Think about that for a second. Like, you can advertise that. Like, anybody who's listening to this podcast now can basically run a TV ad for a low budget, which is just unheard of. So when you think about change, it isn't just about being ambitious. It isn't about having a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. It's also about recognizing around you what's changed in the world and how you can take advantage of that. And I think that's what smart entrepreneurs are always thinking about.
How much we were talking about, like, the growth of your business, and you were saying, we're growing by this much, and if we got 15 or 20 or 30 or whatever those numbers are, percent growth, how much of your time is spent refining what you're doing now to build growth out of that, right? Versus, like, looking for that thing you're not even doing right now, Jimmy, that maybe it is that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious thing out there that you want to tackle. Like, how do you balance just maximizing what you're already doing with trying to go find that next thing that's really going to drive the business?
It's such a good question, because what you're tapping into is everybody wants to move forward, and we tend not to look backwards to identify what was working before in the past in our business. So I think there is this diminishing return with any tactic or any strategy, which is you can do something and that strategy is going to get you, a certain way down the field, right? You're going to move the ball down the field. But if you begin to optimize every single piece of that strategy, it's the law of diminishing returns. It's going to take you 10x more effort to get, maybe 5 yards more down the field than maybe trying an entirely different strategy. So from my perspective, I think you have to understand, you have to have a couple core parts of your business that you focus on. And so if you're in real estate right now and you're listening to this, that is probably going to be the basic stuff you're most familiar with. Following up with your past clients, making your phone calls, right? Doing your mailers. But there has to be a percentage of your time that is dedicated towards innovation, where you're willing to experiment. Maybe the most innovative company in the world in the last 20 years, from a consumer's perspective, that has touched the most amount of people is Google. Right? We go to Google to search everything and anything. It's not Bing. It's not Yahoo. It's Google, right? And Google famously used to have this thing with their employees called the 20% time. And they say 20% of your time can be dedicated to working on any project you wanted to work on. Google Maps, which I know you know how to use, right?
Now we know I know how to use it, yeah.
Right? Gmail, Google Calendar, the whole Google suite emerged from 20% time. Chrome, the #1 browser on the planet, right, that surpassed Microsoft Internet Explorer, the #1 worst browser on the planet, right? Like, that came out of a 20% time mindset. So I think if you were to follow in the path of the greats that came before us, you might look at Google and say, okay, if 80% of the time was focused on search and advertising, which was their core business, 20% was spent on experimentation and innovation. The thing is, and this is the hard part, you have to be willing to actually fail and own that failure, not move on and pretend like it didn't happen. So you have to have a culture within your organization that says, hey, we're going to try this idea. We're going to go on TikTok. We're going to shoot these videos. We're going to do it for 60 days. We're going to see what happens. If it doesn't work, we're going to go back to the drawing board. You have to sort of open the door up and shine the light on that, as opposed to feeling embarrassed that your big idea didn't work. So as an organization, if you think about it, your question, which is such a great question, is like, finding that balance between execution and innovation. I think the old 80-20 probably does you justice. If you go too much on innovation, you can find yourself too far away from what actually helps support the business, and you can end up kind of, I think in some cases, going backwards, and that's obviously not where you want to end up.
When you said that, the part about, like, embracing that failure, or being okay with it, knowing that not everything you try is like, it just makes me think of Gary Vaynerchuk. I've been following him for years, and like, he was one of those guys, like whatever social, like Vine was like a social network. I think at one point he was like all in there, and then he was like, well, no, that's not really, let me go over here. And he's willing to get out and kind of play in those spaces. And a lot of them have failed. Right. But you know, some of them is whatever TikTok or whatever it is that he's good at. Right. Like he's carved out because he's willing to try.
Yeah. And there's a really important lesson here for your audience that I think is so vital that we highlight, which is think about the transferable skills that you can develop through experimentation. So Vine, for those of you who don't know, it was the TikTok before TikTok. Yeah. Twitter bought it. They had TikTok, which is now going to be a $500 billion business, and they killed it. Right? The geniuses at Twitter killed TikTok before it was TikTok, called Vine. But what Gary did is he embraced the medium, which is the short form video content. Now we know that 82% of all internet traffic in 2022 and beyond is going to be video. A big percentage of that is short form video. Short form video is a category in itself. Meaning if you are doing, like we're doing a podcast right now, we're in this room with all these weird posters that Ben Kinney loves, right? And listen, this is an hour long, half hour long, however long it is, right? We got a lot of time to kind of hopefully get your attention, keep your attention. Short form, you got 10 seconds. And Vine used to be 6 seconds, right? Or 5 seconds, whatever it was. Now Reels are 30 seconds. Now they're 60 seconds. But you got to deliver the message, the value, the content in a 30-second or 60-second slot. Now here's the thing. Vine, which then became TikTok then influenced YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. Now short form is on every single social media platform. YouTube has shorts, right? Instagram has Reels. TikTok has TikToks, right? It's going to be, even LinkedIn's got something. Like who's doing that on LinkedIn, right? Even LinkedIn's got that because you have to. And so the ability to take a skill that you could only have it developed through experimentation that now gives you that first mover's advantage when something does become mainstream would not have been possible if he said, Vine's kind of stupid. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and I'm not going to invest any of my time in it because I'm doing this other thing called Wine Library that I'm going to focus on. So I think that's what Gary has basically been known for, and people are critical of the fact that he does everything, and they fail to realize that he's doing it because he's expecting 10% to hit, and he's willing to let the other 90% miss.
Fascinating. I never really we had Active Rain way back in the day where it was people were blogging. And I guess I don't know that I've ever in my head connected that not were they just blogging, but they were like developing their writing skills so that they would later go on and be able to write better copy on their website or better copy for a listing they had or better copy for some marketing thing they wanted to run later. Like that's fascinating. Yeah.
Well, just to echo your point about copy and writing, this is something I tweeted recently. I think the mistake that we make in real estate is because we talk for a living, we think we're good communicators. And in most cases, most people that I interact with in real estate haven't been formally trained on how to write or how to communicate. And I said, if I were a team lead or a broker, I would force my agents to go through a negotiation course, Chris Voss on Masterclass. I would buy his book. I would subscribe to his service. I would force my agents to say, hey, I want every one of you to become an expert negotiator from the world's best negotiator, Chris Voss. He wrote a book called Never Split the Difference. If I were to look to do something on public speaking, there are so many people out there who have had TED Talks on public speaking and power poses and fake it until you make it. I would have them go through a formal course to become a better public speaker, a better negotiator, a better public speaker, and of course, a better writer. That's what we do for a living. We're texting, we're emailing, we're posting on social, we're writing web copy, right? We're doing all these things that involve writing. And the whole point of writing is to communicate an idea and to instill confidence in the person. And if you can become a more effective communicator, here's the value. You can attract more leads, you can convert more deals, you can win more customers, you can turn those customers into advocates and evangelists for your brand. Like that's what writing can do. And I think we just take it for granted, Bob. We just say, we just do this for a living so we don't have to invest in it. And those are the skills I think this industry really needs to begin to embrace. If you do it every single day, like the basics, those are the skills. If you can elevate your game there, you can stand out, and you're seeing that. I think of a client, not a client of ours, but someone who I admire, Glenda Baker. I'm not sure if you've seen her on TikTok. She's out of the Atlanta area, Glenda Baker, and she is teaching people things that I think most professional real estate agents already know. But she's doing so in a way that is so clear and compelling, and it punches you in the face that you're like, this person's a genius. And she's saying things that probably everyone who's going to watch a video go, oh, I knew that. But she's willing to go out there and communicate it to the world. And so she has literally millions of views of her TikTok videos that she then distributes on Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and on our website and everything else. And it's like information that everyone here probably already knows, but she just delivers it in a clear and compelling way. And as a result, her business has been absolutely exploding. So I think those skills are skills I think everybody who's listening today needs to kind of go back to the drawing board and kind of get into the routine and make part of their, ongoing continuing education.
I like that you differentiate between like doing the thing every day and then actually going out and setting out to get better at doing it. It's one thing to just like, we'll stay in real estate because that's what we're familiar with, but it's one thing to like write listing descriptions every single day, right? But unless you decide to like focus on being better at doing that, just doing it every day might not actually make you better.
Yeah, it's a great, well, that's where you sort of hit that level, right? It's good enough. And what I think we try to advocate for, I know you guys advocate for the same thing, which is sort of elevating that zone. Like, what is the minimum standard? Forget about that. Like, what's the bar? We want to get over that bar in everything that we do. And that's where the value is. That's where you stand out. That's where you're different. I think on the marketing side, though, just for a second, I think for your audience today, when you think about the potential of getting good at marketing, the thing that happens when you get good at marketing is that you no longer are dependent on anybody else to grow your business. And if you look at this, like I'll give you an example of this. When you think about a great airline, now you guys don't have this airline so much in the Northwest. But when you think about like an iconic airline, what's the first kind of like few iconic airlines come to mind?
Southwest.
Okay, so let's just stop there.
Okay.
Where can you buy Southwest tickets?
Only on Southwest.
Can't buy it on Expedia?
I don't think so. It used to not be like that.
No? Can't buy on Expedia? Can't buy it on Travelocity or Trivago, whatever that thing is, right?
Right.
You can only buy it on Southwest.com.
Yeah.
And so they have actually, because they're so good at marketing and so good at branding and so good at delivering upon the promise of the brand's value, that they have built a relationship directly with the consumer.
Yeah.
And so they, even during the pandemic, every airline was basically in a free fall. They were as well, because it was a 100-year flood. They have rebounded really well since then. And they were the only profitable airline that was profitable every quarter for 30 plus years, which is unheard. How many times has the airline's been bailed out, right?
Yeah.
It was unheard. They were profitable every single quarter. So what I would advocate for your audience, we're talking about communication, we're talking about leveling up your skills, is the importance of realizing that your number one job is to build a relationship with an audience directly, not just to buy leads or to farm your business out to Zillow. It's like build an audience, and you do that by being great at marketing. And how do you become great at marketing? You get better at writing, you get better at shooting videos, you get better at being a communicator and public speaking and all the things that we're talking about today. So I'm just a huge advocate. When I look to the future, Bob, I'm just a huge advocate of agents who are going direct to consumers, building audiences on these platforms, connecting with people in meaningful ways, and just attracting customers that way. Those are the types of businesses that are going to scale in the future. And I think those are the models that we should be, advocating in our space.
So at Curaytor, you guys actually, do you do the marketing for these agents, or do you like coach them up to become better writers and better?
Yeah. The answer is yes, right? It's like yes to both,
yes,
right?
Yes,
it's like depending on the client. We have certain clients who are raw talents who just, who are great in front of the camera. I think of my guy, Ross Hardy, down in Florida. Ross Hardy is I call him the John King of real estate. He's got this like board, this like electric board that he basically, like CNN John King, like he talks about the market trends and what's happening in the area and what absorption rate means and how much inventory do we have before all these houses sell. And he's just he takes complex real estate data and he makes it simple and accessible. Well, he doesn't need us to go film that video, but he might need our help to distribute that, to get that out via an email or get it out through a YouTube ad, or, help people, are consuming on his website as an example. So certain clients who are, let's say, more driven towards marketing, they are using more of our technology and our coaching. to help distribute that. And some of our clients, they just need us to do it for them. They need us to create the content, write the blog, send the email. And because we are so exclusive per area, what tends to happen is we don't have a lot of saturation. We don't have like the same type of marketing going out for every client in the same area, which is obviously something we rail against. But the one thing that I will say that really smart agents are doing right now is they recognize that marketing is just the beginning of the process. So I think if you think about like, you guys with Active Rain is a great example. Active Rain to me is one of the most innovative and interesting like communities in the real estate industry. I remember when I started my career, I stumbled across Active Rain. I was like, this is crazy. All these agents are sharing tips and ideas. They're coaching each other up. And like, this is kind of unheard of. These are all like theoretically competitors. Mm-hmm. What I think what happened with marketing is a lot of people felt like, oh, if I get really good at like digital marketing, I don't have to do sales anymore. And that's the mistake, which is marketing creates the opportunities to power your sales organization. It doesn't replace sales. So one of the things that I think you guys talk a lot about, that we coach a lot about, is this basic idea that like the goal of marketing is to help raise awareness that you exist, engage an audience, generate leads, so that then when your salespeople pick up the phone and do their job and make the call, that person knows who you are and there's some level of intent there. If you just wait for someone to come and hire you, you're going to be waiting a long time, right? And so I think that's one of the things I would be encouraging your audience to think about, is how all this stuff is connected.
Here's why I asked. Like I talk to, we're again in the same industry. I'm talking to people, and look, we happen to talk to real estate agents, but there are other business owners out there. There's a dentist or there's a whoever who are trying to do their own marketing as well. The reason I asked you the question of like, how much do you guys take on versus how much? Because I tell a lot of people, I say, listen, are you passionate about marketing? Mm-hmm. And they'll say, oh, not really, right? Like, I'm passionate about making money. Or like, are you? Do you think about this all day long? And if the answer to those, basically both of those two answers is no. I don't think about this all day long, Jimmy, and I'm not super passionate about it. Like, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
And especially in marketing, if you are doing your own marketing, to me, and this is perfect correlation for real estate, I feel like you're a FSBO. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you're somebody that said, you know what? I can do this better than Jimmy Mackin and the guys at Curaytor. I can do this better than the folks over at Zillow and Redfin. Mm-hmm. Like, I got to compete against those guys. I can do it better. Yeah. You're kind of acting like a FSBO. Like, do you feel like too many small business owners are out there trying to be like the marketing guru?
It's a really interesting question, because I think about core competency a lot. I think ultimately really smart organizations are so focused and so driven on what makes them great, and they either outsource or partner with everything else. Like, in other words, at Curaytor, we don't do our own accounting. We hire a company called FinVisor that actually does our books every month. And guess what? They close on time and we get them back, right? And we are able to file our taxes and pay our taxes, right? Like, we don't do our own accounting. We don't build our own HR software. We buy it, right? We don't set up servers in the Boston Curaytor office to host all of our clients' websites, right? Like
AWS.
We use AWS. And so when you think about core competency and you think about everything else that isn't core competency, you just have to ask yourself a simple question, which is, if I am doing this thing, does it take away from the thing that actually makes me great? Because if the answer is yes, then you need to find someone who does that thing for a living and partner with them and work with them. And even what you guys are doing at Place, I think, is a perfect example of this. And I gave you the analogy at lunch. I think it's just, I think it's true. Jeff Bezos wrote an article in 2006, and he talked about the sort of birth of AWS. And if you guys aren't familiar with AWS, it's Amazon Web Services. Basically, the world runs on AWS. It's a cloud service that allows every application you use is using one form or fashion of AWS. He said, what we want to do at Amazon is we want to handle the muck. All the things that these entrepreneurs and these developers want to build, they have to do all this work just to deliver an application. And so we want to handle all the dirty work, rolling up their sleeves, getting this thing running, so they can just focus on building great applications. And if you think about it, the emergence of things that we use every day, like Uber, like I gave you an example. Today I showed up in a Tesla. I've never driven a Tesla before in my entire life. Okay. And
I was like, did you drive here from Boston, Jimmy? What, a Tesla?
I showed up at Tesla. Well, the guy that I met him at the airport. I met this dude in the parking lot at the airport. He gave me the key card to a Tesla. Not even a key, it's a key card. For those of you who know drive a Tesla, you know what I'm talking about. And he goes, have you ever driven one before? And I go, no. He goes, would you like some instructions? No, I'm good. I'll figure it out, right? and so, I'm driving this thing, and it's got like no battery left, and I finally arrive here, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, talking about like the core competency. I'm thinking to myself, like, Tesla is a good example of a company that just decided to focus on one particular thing, and they just sort of outsource everything else that doesn't help them build what they want to build. So I just think about core competency and what you guys are doing at Place. Like there are so many things that you need to do to run a business that don't make your business different. And so to your point, if you're not passionate about marketing, if you don't love marketing, you should find someone, either hire or partner, who does. If you're not great at sales and maybe you're just a better coach and a better leader and a better visionary, find a great VP of sales or a sales manager, right? Stop trying to do it all yourself. And the one thing I've learned being in this position is that I personally can only take the company so far. If we want to do bigger things, we're going to have to partner. We're going to have to explore new opportunities. Otherwise, we're going to just kind of stay in our own lane for the foreseeable future. I think agents, you know this firsthand, Bob, I think agents have the tendency like, oh, no one will do it as good as me, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And it's a lie that we tell ourselves that is just factually untrue.
Yeah.
And I think every entrepreneur that you meet is going to say the same thing, which is like, I'm surrounded by great people, and as a result, we're able to do bigger things, right?
Speaking of, that's a natural segue to the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, people. I know that, like, from a couple of different angles, I know that you guys, you love the people you work with, like that you consider them your family. Let's talk about finding great people. Like, how do you find talent for your business? First off, how many, you guys have, 50 employees or something like this? Not a massive business, but that's a lot of people. And you've turned some over the years, I'm assuming. Like,
yeah.
So how do you find people?
Well, let me make one quick point here. I actually don't look at the people that work for me as my family.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
And there's an important distinction here. I think of us more as a professional sports team, which if someone's not performing, right, and they're not living up to their expectations, they're gonna be on the bench. And if someone comes along where they can add more value, we're gonna replace them. And that might sound cold, but the reality is that we spend so much of our lives at work that if you are not doing work that you're good at, that you love, that gives you energy and fuels your passion, then you're taking that away from somebody, and you need to help them move on. And so even I'll give you an example of this. We're doing a program right now at Curaytor called the Golden Parachute, which we said to all of our employees, hey, listen, we're about to make some big moves here. We're looking to accelerate our growth. Our expectations are going to be higher for every person here. And that means that we want everyone to be leveling up. And if you don't want to be part of that journey, that is completely okay. Doesn't make you a bad person. Doesn't make you the wrong fit. And certainly we're not going to treat you like crap on the way out the door. So we're going to offer you a package right now that you can take, which is for X amount of dollars, which is a lot of money, and say the Golden Parachute. We will not only do this, we will actually also be a source of reference for you for future employees. We will help you find another job with unlimited job placement post exit. We will make this truly a golden parachute for you to land on your feet in your next career. And we had about 4 people take that golden parachute. And guess what that did for everybody else in the organization, right? It gave them the sort of signal, and it gave them sort of the vision that, hey, things are going to change here because they told me they were going to change, right? And I think too often we're so focused on the people who are challenging an organization, who are sucking the life out of the company, that we forget about the people we want to keep. And so what we want to do is if you run an organization where you have let's have an honest conversation here for a second, Bob, right? There are people who are listening to this podcast right now who have people on their team that they want to fire right now. Okay.
I'm sure there's somebody. Absolutely.
I want everyone to close your eyes. Okay.
Who's the first face that pops in your head?
What's the
you don't
first
punch,
face
right?
or faces, right? And you see, okay. And a simple test, this is Jim Collins, right? It's like good to great is if you flip this decision, if it's a hiring decision, right? Versus a firing decision. Hey, knowing what you know now, would you hire this person? If the answer is no, then you should have a golden parachute for that person, right? So if you think about this for a second, and I'll make my point here, but if you think about this for a second, if you have people in that organization that exist that really shouldn't be there because they're not good at their job, they don't care, they suck the energy out of the room. Okay. Well, yeah, maybe you can tolerate them and maybe you want to avoid having the tough conversation, but that's not the point. The problem is you've got your producers, your leaders in the making who are seeing that you accept that at the organization, and they're saying, if they accept that, that's the bar. And so I think too many times organizations are so fixated on dealing with their problem child, they don't recognize how much of a cost it comes at the people they want to retain. So a Curaytor, I think we've done a good job, especially as of late, by holding ourselves to a higher standard and saying, hey, listen, if you're not a good fit for this organization, we're not going to kick you out the door. We'll give you a golden parachute. We'll help you land on your feet. We'll help you move on. But we're not going to accept mediocrity, and we're not going to accept people who are complacent, and we're certainly not going to accept people who are going to suck the energy out of the room, because this is hard work and we're trying to do something here. And so I think that is the first thing, is making sure that everyone in the organization understands and you hold yourself to that level of accountability so that you attract the people who like that level of intensity. Now, here's the other thing. I've always believed that opportunity eats culture for breakfast, which is, I believe if you have a great culture at an organization, right, that way may make the decision to leave harder, but eventually the person is going to move on to where they think the best opportunity is. And so a lot of people are focused on becoming best friends and having cocktails together and doing events like Secret Santa, whatever. Like they're so focused on that. I've seen so many team leads
on that culture side
on
of
the
things.
cult, like it's all the perks, right?
Yeah.
And what I've seen is so many team leads get their heart broken when their top agent takes two of their other agents, starts a competing team, right? We've all heard this story. Maybe you've lived that story, okay? And then you become disenfranchised or jaded. And so what I think you should be thinking about when it comes to your people, and this is going to help when you come to attracting people, is saying, I want to make sure that I'm constantly thinking about creating more opportunities for the people around me to succeed, to get better, to make more money, to develop new skills, to challenge themselves, to feel a sense of fulfillment at work. I want to create that environment. And so when you think about being a CEO of your business, there are three basic things you should do. Number one, you should set the strategy. Like, what are we doing here? What's the goal? Number two, you've got to make sure you have the resources, right, and environment to make that strategy actually possible. And number three is the people. Do you have the right people to actually execute on the strategy that you set forth? Strategy, resources, people. And so in the case for hiring, I think you can attract the right talent by creating a culture where it's about growth, progression, about taking on new challenges. And the rest of the stuff just happens naturally. You don't have to force it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go to battle with someone and you develop a relationship and a respect that you become intimate and close and friends with them. You don't have to force it. Like, I think about my COO, Tim Harvey. I promoted Tim. He was in our customer success department. I promoted him director of operations prior to COVID. And then we went through COVID together, right, as an organization. And I saw Tim's a major in the Marine Corps. He's got a ton of leadership experience. He's been to Afghanistan, right? So this was not really something he was too concerned about. But he is such a strong leader, and he is someone who I can count on to get the job done, and someone who understands what it means to take extreme ownership over something. That even though Tim and I liked each other before COVID, he worked for me for a while, right, for a couple of years. Like, when we actually went through the initial sort of wave as a business, it brought us closer together. We developed a stronger relationship, and now, like, he's Curaytor's chief operating officer. He oversees all of operations at Curaytor, which is why I can fly out to Bellingham, right, and do a podcast in this room with weird posters with you guys, because I have someone who's running the business. And I think, so Tim is a guy who wanted opportunity. He took a job as a major in the Marine Corps. He took an entry-level job at Curaytor. He worked his way up to director of operations. He earned his stripes and became COO, right? He's a guy I want to keep. And I didn't keep him by saying, hey, Tim, I love working with you, man. I kept him by saying, let's create a path for more opportunity for you. And every challenge I gave him, he just hit it out of the park, which then gave me the sort of opportunity to create more for him.
Is that something you do? Does everybody in your organization have some path that or is this something where you're like saying, look, I can't have a path for all 50 of these people to take my job.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
But so is it like certain people in the organization, you say, man, that person's really talented. I really need to figure out a path for them. Yeah. Or is it kind of like the entire organization knows what a path would look like?
Yeah, well, career development is something that every organization works on. It's difficult. It's hard, especially when you have people who are, let's say, there can only be so many executives, so many managers. Right. What I think you're getting at, and it's really, I think, a good observation here, is that you have to understand what progress means that goes beyond the job title. And so what I have found to be the case is that for certain people, they don't want to be a manager. Yeah. They don't want to be an executive.
My wife's like that. Like, she's a top salesperson. She has no desire at all to manage some other salespeople.
But she wants to be challenged and she wants the opportunity to learn and to grow. And that is entirely different than getting some additional title. And so I think about it from the perspective, Bob, of like, okay, if they are doing the same job, are they developing new skills? Because that's where you get fulfillment, right? And I think that the thing that you always want to be conscious of is, do they feel like their work matters? Do they understand what role they play in the organization? I was walking around this office today, and there are what felt like 100 people here, all doing a million different things. And the thing that I'm sure all of them go home thinking about at night, the ones who were happy and are productive, when they have a good days of work, they probably feel like, yeah, I feel like I accomplished something. I got something done. My work matters. So for people who don't want to necessarily climb the, corporate ladder, that doesn't mean they don't want to progress. It just doesn't mean they don't want to manage people. And guess what? Managing people sucks. Yeah. Sorry, like newsflash, guys. It's terrible, right? It's an awful job. So you have to really want it. And for most people, that's not the case. And that's completely okay.
It's funny, I think a lot of people, we think about like that progression in the workplace. Yeah. And a lot of times I think it comes, but you think money. Mm-hmm. And like my wife, she makes a really good living, hundreds of thousands of like top salesperson living in the entire United States. And for a long time in her career, it was about making more money, right? Like that's what progress looked like to her. But she's actually gotten to this place where more money is not even the thing anymore. She makes enough money. Yeah. Right. We could all make more money, right? But like she wants to be challenged. Yeah. She wants to feel like she's, like actually impacting the organization. Like she wants something more than just another $20,000 or whatever, right? Yeah. So, and she is somebody that, again, like if I had looked at her 10 years ago and said, do I think she'd ever get to this place where all of a sudden she wanted to feel like she needed, to be more of a part of the organization or to be challenged, I would have said no. Like as long as she can just keep making more money each year, she's going to be fine. But even that ends at some point for people.
Well, your wife is the Bill Belichick of salespeople. Because Bill Belichick, when a reporter asked him during training camp, what are you hoping to accomplish this season? He said, I just want to go out and have a good practice. Which is like, she wants to like get into, like, she wants to have a good day. She wants to get better. She wants to make progress, right? She wants to like, this is her craft. There isn't going to be a lot of new variables. You're just trying to like, there's joy in the work, right? Like I've been at this for over 10 years now. I've run Curaytor now for the last 2 years, but I co-founded the company 8 years ago with my partner, Chris Smith. And the thing about it is like, I love getting on a call with a customer and teaching them something about marketing that can help them grow their business. I really enjoy that. And I get a lot of satisfaction out of doing it. Even though I don't get to do it as often as I'd like anymore, and it's not a big part of my day, it's still something I really enjoy doing. And so the value of that is like, I just love the work. And so the work is like, if you're not excited about the work, like it's too damn hard to build a business if you're not excited about what you're doing. And so I think that's where you have to realize that it's not just about financial goals. It's about something more than that. And if you can identify what that is and take pride in that, then it can be fulfilling in itself. And you don't have to always be chasing whatever other milestone you want to chase. Now, that's advice for other people. For me, I'm the sort of exact opposite. I want to do something really big. I want to chase that dragon, right? I want to grow. And some of you listening today probably feel that same way. And so for me, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there. But that might not be you, and that might not be the people who are part of your team.
You don't necessarily expect that to be the people in your organization, because how could they be as committed and as passionate about the organization as you are, the guy that co-founded it and leads it today, right?
Yeah,
How do you balance that? How do you look at somebody who you know there's no way they could be as passionate about it as you are, and you're like, man, why can't this guy just work a little bit harder? Why isn't he as passionate as me?
Yeah, it's
I struggle with that in our world. I look around and I go, don't they want it as bad as I do? And I'm sure Ben's probably saying that to me, right? Doesn't he want it as much as I do?
Yeah, these are such great questions, Bob. I know you didn't do your research, okay? But these are good questions, and these are good conversation points. Maybe
you just know. You just have to accept it, right? Because how could they be as passionate about it as you are?
It's the hard part, what you're describing, and I think every team lead who's listening to this podcast is going to say, like, I work so many hours to kind of get the business to where it's at today. And so if I see someone who isn't operating at my speed, it really bothers me. And the reality is that they have a different stake in the success of the organization. So it is unfair of you to ask them to work nights and weekends, to put in, the hours, the sweat equity that you have to put in to build something. It's unfair of you because the payoff is simply not the same. And now you can get more buy-in through things like stock options and give people ownership, and that does help significantly. But you have to always realize, and you have to recognize that your speed might not be their speed, and it isn't your job to make them run as fast as you want them to run. It's really about making sure that they feel like the work they do matters and they are helping you get to where you want to go. And so for me, I've had to come to terms with that because everyone at Curaytor knows this already. I've got one speed, and I don't have like a second gear, right? I'm just absolutely pedal to the floor every time. That's my speed. And so I've had to figure out ways to like effectively apply that so I'm not an agent of chaos within an organization. And so the way that I do that is I'm sprinting towards longer term goals, not short term. So I'm sprinting towards the 6-month or 12-month or 24-month vision, not what's happening today. If I apply my energy to happening today, it's just like everything's moving too fast, right? I've got to be sprinting towards the horizon while they're working on the day-to-day, working in the business.
How is that? Because I'm in this place right now. This is like a therapy session for you. It's turned into a therapy session for me, Jimmy. I'm in this place where I'm having to extract myself from the day-to-day and focus more on the stuff a year out.
Yeah.
But like you said, like you love getting on the phone and talking to customers about marketing. Like I like doing what I do today. It gives me energy. Yeah. I'm passionate about it. Like I could go through a whole day of focusing on today's work and not thinking about a year from now and feel really good about myself. Like how do you make that transition? Because you've had to make it not long ago, right? Yeah. It was just you and Chris, and you were on the phone with every customer, and you guys built this organization where you had to step away from that. How do you get away from something that you actually enjoyed doing?
The dopamine rush you get from doing the day-to-day job disappears when you work in the future.
Okay.
And it's so frustrating because you're working on things that are not going to come to fruition for months, if not years.
Yeah.
And so you have to rewire your brain to recognize what progress actually means. So we're working on things that are not going to be available for our customers for 6 months from now. But every day I'm working on those things with a team that's building the things that we're going to be releasing. And I get no satisfaction. I can't announce it. I can't talk about it, right? I can't do any of that. And
you guys are marketers, so if you got something that like you're on the verge of being able to market, right?
Oh yeah. And so my team would kill me if I said, "Hey guys, we got this amazing new thing coming." It would be a mutiny instantly. So number one, you don't have the dopamine rush, and that's challenging. And what you tend to do is you tend to sort of fall back into your old habits, right? And so I think in the case right now, Bob, if you don't commit to longer vision, you just revert back to whatever you did beforehand.
Yeah.
So and just to kind of get that feeling, right? And so I don't know if I have any advice for you as your therapist today, except the fact that what you're describing is real. But if you're feeling it, it means you're working on the right stuff. And that's what ultimately matters. And that's why, great leaders are able to lead and they're not able to get distracted by, what's comfortable. Because what you're working on now is new, it's different, it's long-term, it's uncomfortable. And that's obviously where you're operating, which makes a difference.
How does your day lay out? How do you manage your time? Like, I'm fascinated by the million things that Ben has on his plate on any given day, right? Like this guy, and there's constantly stuff popping up. Like, I don't know when your visit popped up, but here you are, right? Like kind of out of the blue potentially, right? And probably part of the reason we're sitting in here because Ben had something else on his calendar right now, and he's shifting stuff to get Jimmy. Like, how do you manage, like, how does a CEO that runs a big organization and get 50, like, how do you manage your time?
Yeah, David Acosta. David Acosta, one of the agents we interviewed in the water cooler, once told us many years ago, I never forgot, he said, if you don't control your calendar, somebody else will. Now, that is something everyone here who's listening to this podcast, I'm sure has heard one flavor, one version of. So I didn't have an executive assistant for the better part of 7 years. And we brought one on. She's part of our sales team, moved her over to become my executive assistant. Her name's Amber Urban. Amber handles everything for me that isn't strategy, resources, and people. I mean, literally ordering my lunch, right? Booking my car, booking my hotel, uploading the directions.
Can she find you a Apple iPhone charger and a Tesla charger?
She could have. I was too afraid to call because I thought my phone was going to die in the middle of it. So I was trying to preserve that when I had to call a tow truck when I broke down. She does every single thing that gets the muck off my plate. And this means she also responds to she manages my inbox. I don't go into my email inbox, right? I'll occasionally check it, like maybe at the beginning of the day or end of the day, but like she's in my email inbox. I got emails right now. I'm not worried about it. She's an air traffic controller handling all of that. But what she does for me is even more than just sort of a traditional EA, right? And this helps me with my calendar and my schedule, is she's a PM. And so I know about myself, I'm a great starter. I'm not a great operator. I have an idea. I know it's the right decision, or at least I think it's the right decision. I hope it's the right decision. I'm betting on it's the right decision. And I want to see this thing come to fruition. So as an example, we're working on some brand new designs for a front-end website builder. And so I'm like, hey, Amber, listen, that's what I want you to do. I want you to go on Dribbble, which is a design resource. We can find, all these different designs across the world. I want you to connect with these 10 firms that I've already found for you. I want you to talk to them, get a proposal, get the timeline, get the price, and I want you to put it all together for me in a dossier that I can look over and review and then make a decision. And so she PMs all these million little projects that I have that are they're going through my mind. She organizes it, she manages it. And so what that allows me to do is it allows me just to actually work on strategy, resources, or people. Talking to VCs for raising capital, recruiting people to join the organization, or digging into an S1 of a company that's filing to go public like Robinhood just did to understand what the business looks like so I can apply some of the learnings to what we're doing at Curaytor. I'm able to do that stuff because I'm able to have her handle things as trivial as ordering my lunch to things as important as coordinating a design project that's going to impact every single Curaytor client. So I was really stupid. I didn't hire an EA until I was 7 years into the job. And we had 30 employees. Not one of them reported to me. I managed my own calendar, my own emails. And what I would do, like everyone else who's listening today, I'd be in my email inbox checking, right? I'd be replying to emails. I'd be doing that. That doesn't give you leverage. You're just now responding to other people's priorities and you are just sort of in that rat race. Now, maybe, it could be perceived as bougie, right? To have an EA, to have an executive assistant. But for me, it's leverage. For me, it's like doing things that actually make a difference. And she empowers me to make that a reality. And she is an absolute bulldog. I mean, I have a rule with her. I just say, Amber, no boomerangs. I throw a problem your way. I do not want it coming back. So just figure it out.
No boomerangs.
I say no boomerangs. That's like the one rule I have is no boomerangs. I'm going to throw it to you. I don't want to hear an update on how it's going. I don't care if it's difficult. It's off my plate. It's on your plate. You got the ball. I know we're mixing sports analogies here, but go with it, right? Take care of it. Do whatever you want to do. And she is the second version of me. Meaning when she talks to someone in the company, she represents me. So she has that sort of power and authority.
So you hired her from inside the organization. Do you feel like you could have like hired somebody from outside and still got that same flavor? Is the fact that she was in the organization, getting a feel for who you are, give her like a better?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I'm sure we could have found somebody from outside the organization. I think it did help her that she was in sales.
Bit of a leg up.
Yeah. A, in sales, B, understood the organization, but she didn't report to me prior to that. She's in Orlando. She's essentially remote. I'm in Boston. We didn't have a relationship before this. So it wasn't like she was sitting across from me. I saw her every day. We had no relationship. And I think I'll tell you the moment I knew she was the right hire. I got booked for an event that I couldn't go to. It was a scheduling conflict. And it was a paid event. They paid me to come down and speak about marketing and sales. And I said, Amber, I can't go to this event. Can you have them move the event? Now think about that, right? and like a week later, I found that she was able to move the event back a day. Now listen, I'm not that good of a speaker. They really shouldn't have moved the event. But she was able to get it done. And I knew like if this person can just like get that problem done, she can handle anything. And that's what you're looking for. You don't need your executive assistant. If that executive assistant you're working with right now is constantly asking
bringing you problems.
Yeah, bringing you problems.
Back your own problem. That's what Ben says. He says, well, he's like, I don't, when I give you a potato, I want fries back. I don't want to give you the potato and 3 hours later you throw me the potato back. Like, here you go. Can you help me make these fries?
Yeah. No, and I think people have those individuals in their organization. And typically what the problem is maybe not the person, it is the training. It is the onboarding, is making sure they understand what success means. And so if the person doesn't have clarity, they're afraid that they're going to make a mistake. And so therefore they're coming to you to get validation. You need to be explicit. You need to say, I'm giving you a potato, I expect fries back.
Or you need to give them full power. Like you've given her, you've said, look, I don't care, get it done. You got the full autonomy to go get it done, right? Yeah. So that way, even when she's uncertain, she feels comfortable making a decision because she has autonomy.
Yeah, I'm never going to get mad if you make a mistake. I'm like, you make a mistake as an opportunity. And she's done it before. Like before any meeting, she texts me who I'm meeting with, all the information about the meeting, what the agenda is, any information about that individual that I should know, I have in advance. Now I've had thousands of meetings since she's been my EA. She's maybe missed it 5 times. Right? And when she does, she apologizes. I'm saying you don't have to apologize, but just recognize, why didn't you do this? And let's make sure it doesn't happen again. Let's move on. Like I'm not upset about it, but like it's an opportunity for us to say like, okay, cool. This is like part of your task. Is there anything that's unclear about this? No, I made a mistake. Cool. Like I'm good. I'm not going to like go off the handle because you screwed up one time out of 100 times. I screw up 80 times out of 100 times. like I'm good. Like we're good, right? So I think that relationship where the person can realize that you're not going to bite their head off if they screw up, if they make a mistake. That's so critical with an EA. So going back to your original question, but was like my calendar allows me to do like stuff I love to do that adds value for the organization, because all the muck, which is the theme of today's show here, is all handled by my EA. And then the things that I need to handle, she sends me an end of day report. And in that end of day report, it includes anything that I need to weigh in on or answer that she couldn't do. And Bob, it's like one thing, right? One thing, maybe 2 things a day, right? And usually it just updates on what she's accomplished, just so I'm read up on it and we're on the same sheet of music.
So if anybody out there wants to know the inner workings of Curaytor, what's her last name? Amber what?
Amber Urban.
Amber Urban has all the answers, it sounds
She knows
like.
that. She knows where all the bodies are buried.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
awesome. And in Boston, there's bodies buried everywhere, I think. They've been burying bodies there since like the 1500s or something. So Jimmy, man, thanks for doing this. This is so awesome. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Again, great questions for someone who was completely unprepared for today's podcast.
This was the Lazy Man's podcast. But
that's it. We'll take it. But I appreciate you having me on it, and I hope for your audience who's listening today, I hope you guys got value out of it, and I appreciate the love.
How does Chad wrap these up? This is the only reason we needed Chad here today, Dave. So I appreciate you guys joining us. You can always find us on Facebook at Facebook.com/groups/ Win, Make, Give. Share this podcast with somebody. He's Jimmy Mackin. If you're a real estate agent and you guys aren't familiar with Curaytor, Curaytor, they're friggin' awesome. And if your marketing needs to level up, they're the guys I'd go to. So appreciate you today, Jimmy. We'll talk to you soon. We'll see you, the rest of you guys, later. And we always end these by reminding you to do good.